First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, black women don't get this. And then, lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that I finished with the IV and the chemo that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional not over-the-counter, but prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so very happy to have you here with us as we celebrate Women's HERstory Month 2023. And we're also celebrating and commemorating Lymphedema Awareness Month. And I will pretend that I absolutely knew that those two things coincided and that we planned this perfectly, but that is not the case. We are very happy about that sweet coincidence because all we're talking about this year is bringing awareness to lymphedema. What is lymphedema? How does it impact people? What does it have to do with breast cancer? What, why, how, where, who, all the questions we're trying to address this year. So stay tuned and we'll talk some more about that. Before we do that, I'm going to invite my sister, Mma, up on stage. And together we are going to hold space in our land acknowledgement. So the Olive Branch of Hope's office is situated on Indigenous land. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The Olive Branch of Hope gratefully acknowledges these Indigenous nations for their guardianship of this land. The Olive Branch of Hope also recognizes stolen people from across the world who have inhabited this land by force. Slavery prior to and including the transatlantic slave trade, continuing through modern-day human trafficking, have brought Indigenous peoples from across the globe to care for this land. We acknowledge the truth of our Canadian history and commit ourselves to reconciliation with knowledge and careful intention. And I invite you, Mma, with me. We're going to take just a few moments of silence. Feel free to use this as a moment for prayer, for memory of a loved one, or to set an intention for the conversation that we'll be having here today. So just a few moments of silence, please. Thank you, my sister, for sharing with me to hold this space in this moment. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm happy to be here with you. So I just wanted to let everybody know how we met. Right?
Okay.
So I never go to the flea market. And my husband went to get something. And on our way out, I'm usually like, if I do go, and I mean, it's been like years, right? So if I do go, I have my blinders on. I'm just going to go in and follow him, and we're done, and we're out, and we're gone. And I passed, and I saw this stall, and I was like, ooh, these things look really nice. And there's this lady, and she's so lovely and warm, and, and then she gives me the prices. And I was like, oh, I can afford this. So right away on the spot, and my husband will tell you, I'm not much of like an impulse shopper, right? I tend to be very particular. I go hunting, I get what I want, and I'm done. But right on the spot, I bought a lovely outfit for our wedding anniversary. Mind you, this was months before our anniversary, but I bought it for that purpose. And I donned it, and it was lovely. And I felt, like a queen in this outfit. And that's how we got connected. We exchanged numbers right away. I was like, girl, I have to introduce you to the sisterhood. Tell everyone about you and the lovely work that you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mma Helen. I'm a Nigerian immigrant in Canada. I'm a Canadian also, right? So, um, what I do is I sell African made clothes in African print, not just clothes, shoes, bags, jewelry, and all the things I sell are handmade. They are made with love, all the way from the motherland. And I do this because I help women back home to make a living because most women, some of them are educated, some are not, and most of them are unable to find good jobs to fend for their families. And so you have people who are educated who had to go to learn how to sew. And how do I encourage these women? I do that by buying these clothes from them and selling them here in Canada. I'm also promoting the African heritage because I love beautiful colors. I noticed when I came to Canada, people really liked like the nude, the black, just t-shirt and jeans. And I'm not like that. I love the burst of colors. I love patterns. I love things that I would wear and people would turn and look and say, "Ooh, wow, that's new. That's different." And so it's a two-way thing. It's more like a symbiotic relationship, right? So I sell these things at an affordable price because I want people to know my culture, my heritage, to appreciate it. And also the purpose is not to like make a ton of, you know, profit or wealth, that people wouldn't be able to afford. But I want to make it affordable, and I also want to help the women back home, to feed their families and make a living. So that's why I got into it.
Yes. And I want to look, I'm here. Anybody who's on with me, I'm always like bigging y'all up and, making sure people know that there's business, there's entrepreneurship, and then there's heart, and those of us who do this with heart, who have a very clear social cause like you do, right? You want to promote history and culture, but then also help the women right now, to actually access markets that they otherwise might not be able to easily access. And so, with that, I just want to talk about how this lady saved me.
Oh my
I messaged her like late a Friday night and I was like, listen, I need an outfit for tomorrow, please. And I was about to facilitate a day retreat at Coconut Village Spa in Aurora. And so I'm going to meet these lovely Cancer Survivors in Aurora. And I'm like, can you meet me somewhere? Like, what can we do? We meet in Richmond Hill and we like intercept each other. We fit my dress in the car park.
And that was it.
And the dress was lovely. Oh my gosh. I did the retreat. I had a performance that night and I stood there and I donned this dress and I just felt so lovely. I wore it in Barbados and I'm telling you, Ma, everywhere I went, people stopped me and they were like, I love this dress. I was like, I do too.
Yeah. That's the effect we want to give. We want to make people turn and look at you, be different, be unique. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And thank you too.
So, I'm so happy that we're here and I'm happy that we'll be able to do more work together with the Olive Branch of Hope, and to be able to continue support Cancer Survivors. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and, about your business. Can you tell people, first of all, where to find you before we jump into,
Okay, so
yeah,
my website is www.bellafriconline.com or www.bellafric.ca. You can find me in Richmond Hill, 9325 Young Street, Unit 27, or you can call me 416-732-3095.
you got all the contacts, y'all. So hurry up and go copy your favorite pieces. But leave mine. Don't be taking mine. But yes, my dear. So now you talk about, coming from Nigeria, living in a different country. Um, you know, you talk about the experiences of different women back home, and you talk about having this business and being committed to, only presenting things that are handmade, only presenting things that represent your culture. At some point you had to think all of this, right? It had to be thought of at some point. In your opinion, what do you think is the importance of vision, for especially for us as women?
Well, a vision, to me, vision gives direction.
Mhm.
You have to see with your mind's eye where you want to be. And that is what guides you to accomplish that which you want. So without vision, you're just striking the air. You're just walking blindly. And so you have to, and I think of us, our environment and our circumstances and our experiences, these are the things that forms our vision. So you must have gone through something, and then you would have said to yourself, look, I want to be this. This is where I want to be, as a result of whatever I must have gone through. And so you may not know how you will get there, but that vision, is just that guiding light that directs you to where you want to be. So it's very important, because without vision, I don't think you can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so powerful. I remember, I believe it's Helen Keller who said, worse than being blind is to be able to see and have no vision.
Yes, because I read something. We actually see first with our minds
Mm-hmm.
before we see with our eyes. Because if you do not see with your mind and your mind is blind, you no matter how good something is, even if everyone is seeing it, you do not see it. Okay, you do not see it. You do not see the potential in people or in things, because your mind is already blind. So we first of all see with our minds before we see with our physical eyes, and that's what makes vision very powerful. It's a very
Yes.
powerful tool.
Yeah.
And a vision, I when I was growing up, right, I grew up without a father, and my mom was the only one who took care of us. And my dad, he rejected us as kids, and he didn't want anything to do with us. And in my mom was not educated, right? She was just like a local woman, but and she told me her parents couldn't afford to take her to school, but that she would ensure that all her children went to school. And my mom did odd jobs, she did all sorts. And we all are graduates, we all went to school. And I'm happy because of where I am today. And that experience formed part of my vision,
Yeah.
to help women like her, people back home who may have gone through similar experiences, or just for some reason, because of the economy, are unable to, provide for their families like they should. So that is what has, directed me to where I am today.
Yeah. And I want to highlight, your mom had a vision
Yes, she did.
for her children, and
Yes.
she worked to produce the result. She
Yes, she
spoke
did.
it
Yes,
and
she
she
did.
did it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, she did.
And I want that also, because you mentioned her not having, like, lots of traditional education. I want
No.
us to see that, our vision is the powerful seed that's been planted within us, that calling, that thing we have to respond to. And formal education, informal education, it's all about pushing us towards realizing this vision. So it's not an excuse we get to make on the other side either,
Yeah,
right? We
that's
can't
true.
say at the
That's
end of our lives, oh, I didn't, complete my mission, I didn't fulfill my vision because I didn't go to a fancy school,
exactly.
and so
Yes.
we want to be able to take courage from that if that vision is there on the inside of you, then you are enough. You are enough to bring it
Yes.
to the fore. Oh
Yes.
my gosh. Now, you went to school, first generation in your family. You're growing up in a situation where, as you said, dad has rejected the family. How many children were in this?
We're two girls, but my mom adopted two more kids.
Mhm,
Whose well, there was one whose parents could not send him to school.
mhm.
And then there was one, a teenage cousin who just got pregnant and didn't want the child somehow. My mom said,
Mhm.
"Bring him over," and so we're four.
I feel like we need to take a moment to celebrate mom, right? Because
Yes,
mom,
I love her. She's strong.
yes. Look how mom is representing, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes even in a North American context where we are now, you might see somebody struggling and you're just like, well, I'll pray for you, right? But you're
Yes.
not necessarily going to be like, oh, bring your child, I'll take
Yes.
care of your
Yes.
child,
Yes.
I'll, feed another mouth and whatnot. And so mom has now extended her vision past her birth children in a difficult situation, right? And taken on two more children.
Yes, we all lived in one small room, right?
Mhm.
We all lived in one small room. But now we're all grown and married, and
Yeah.
we're celebrating her.
Yes.
And I hope she lives long for us.
Absolutely. And our sister Pat here, who's been with us, is saying, yep, she is indeed a true mother.
Yes.
Now, in any of these experiences, going to school, moving
Yeah.
to Canada,
Yeah.
growing up in the village, being in this now extended family setting,
Mhm.
at any of these points, did you experience a sense of voicelessness? Did you feel at any point as though your voice was diminished?
Yes. First of all, as it's usually the norm back home, right? But as coming to Canada and as a woman and as a woman of color, I did experience that because when I came here, I couldn't use any of my degrees to find a job at all.
Mhm.
So, and I got to, there was one particular employer who told me that, oh, you have a bachelor's degree in this and that. Oh, you can't use it here. Don't even put that on your CV.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that was someone. And I told myself that, look, this person cannot silence my voice, right? You can't look at me and just pass that kind of judgment on me. You do not know me. You haven't even tested me. Yet you're saying, oh, you have this. Oh, okay, but I don't think this is seriously,
Yeah.
you know. But I don't want to bring the issue of color or whatever into this, but it's really difficult for people like us to find a voice here. And another thing is, when you speak and you speak with an accent, you know it's people assume that you know nothing or you're from a backward place, but that's not the case. And also as a woman, but thankfully, my husband is also enlightened, and he has become the father that I never had to me. Okay, he has been my brother, everything to me. And so I do not experience that kind of silencing when it comes to male dominance, as is usually seen in most African societies. Okay, so that's what I'm grateful for. But I did experience that with my mom, because no family member reached out from her side or from her husband's side. The stigma that came with being a single mom, you
Mhm.
know with being seen as a failure or something, I had to live with that even as a child. My dad left when I was 2, so I never knew him. So that's what I have. I can borrow that experience from her, and I also have mine here, which I still have. You know,
Yeah.
every time. But
Yes.
I've grown past that now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in our society, and as business people and whatnot, there is a lot of talk about positivity and stuff, and so sometimes we feel as though when we talk about the real things that actually happened to us, that we're not allowed to talk about it. But we love to give space for this because we want the women who are listening to us, who are currently in the situation that we've overcome, to understand that we've dealt with it as well. Sometimes when we grow past a certain point, we only talk about where we are and we kind of gloss over some of the things that have happened before. But when we get real and honest, like you are being right now, that's where a single mom listening to you who's facing that stigmatism based on her culture, right? Or even on her own self, right? Thinking that she's a failure,
Exactly.
right? Because
Yes.
of what happened in her marriage.
Yes.
Moms with multiple children, adopted children,
Yes.
all of these people are here represented in your one story. And so we want other women to be able to hear it and see themselves in it and see you now and think, I will get past this too, right? If Ma did it, I will get past it as
Yes.
well. Yes.
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 Yes. Whatever you set your mind to, people will always judge. That's the world we live in. As a woman, you get judged even more, right? So people will always judge, and don't be too hard on yourself, right? No one is perfect. You may have said, "Oh, I didn't do this right. I didn't do that. What if I had done this?" No, you know, as take your life as it is now and then make it what you want it to be. The power, whatever has happened, but the power now lies in your hands. What will you do with it? What will you do? What do you choose to do? Regardless of whatever. And just shush everyone. Let there be silence. Just shush everyone and be your own person and make your own choice.
Yeah.
And the way will become clearer as you do so.
Yes, that's gonna
Yes.
be my motto from now on. Just push
Yes,
everybody.
shush.
Just push.
Shush. Just shush. People always think they have an opinion. Just shush.
Push for now. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll share a quick story with you because you talked about someone who, when you came in as a newcomer and you're trying to establish yourself, and they're supposed to be helping you with your CV and helping you to get established. I really want people who are in that position to understand the power of their words and the impact of their guidance or the lack thereof. you know I similarly went to one of these places when I had first come, and I went with my resume and everything, and I had very specific questions, but it seemed as though the intake person had a process and she wanted to take me through this process that they normally go through,
Yeah,
and she wasn't listening to anything I was saying.
exactly.
And she was also a person of color, not a black woman,
Mm-hmm.
but also a person of color.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, "Well, I noticed on your resume you have all of this wasted time." And I said, "Oh, deciding to stay at home with my daughter for
It's
3 years is a waste of time." So I got up and I walked out. And I remember feeling like I had now wasted my morning coming to this place, and in that moment, I didn't realize the silencing had happened. So when I went home, I called back. I was like, no, this can't stay like this, because you know what? She's going to do it to somebody else too.
exactly.
And so I called back and I asked to speak to the manager, and I let them know that this was my experience and it's not acceptable and it's not okay. Right.
Yes,
You can look at our resumes, you can look at our CVs, you can see what our experiences are. You can ask me about my choices, but you can't make a judgment like that so far.
exactly. Because you do not know the person. You don't know my story. You don't know,
Mhm.
you're just seeing something written on a piece of paper. You haven't come, and you cannot just dismiss me or
Yes.
pass judgment. Just be fine. You may have your qualifications and things that you want, that's okay. We're not saying water down your standards, but do not make the person feel lesser than the person is. I told my husband something. I said, when you speak to people, when we have to try to talk to people in a way that they still walk out with their dignity intact. You understand? I cannot speak to you in a way that, you know, you feel,
Mhm.
dejected and like a failure or something. No, let the person's dignity be intact, or do
That's
not
right.
even speak at all. Say, okay, I'll get back to you. Something like that,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And that's so key, right? Because in the learning, even if we're using it as a moment to help another person learn, there's still that word you mentioned, dignity,
Yes.
right? We all have it. We all walk around with it. It is our right to be respected as dignified human beings. But when we have experienced that, that silencing, that gives us now the opportunity to go ahead and make sure that we stand up and advocate on behalf of someone else, and of course for ourselves going forward. You talked about, don't dismiss me because you don't know my story.
Yes, you
You don't know
don't.
who I am.
You
You don't
do
know what
not.
I've been through.
Yes.
Tell me why it's important for us as women to tell our own stories. Why should we be the ones to determine the version of our story that the world hears?
It's simple. No one will tell your story for you if you don't. And so if you do not tell your story, who will? Who will? I see you. Okay, you're a nice person, but I don't know your story. You're telling me your story now makes me see you in a newer light. It now makes you have more respect from my perspective, because you may have gone through stuff that I know nothing of. Regardless of my own experience, each person's experience is unique. And so you need to tell it. You need to say it. Okay? Not because you care about someone else's opinion, but no one will tell it for you. So you need to tell it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And if they tell it, they're telling it from their perspective,
Exactly.
right? It's our
Yes.
life, but they'll tell it from their perspective, you
Exactly.
know? I
Exactly.
often ask people, think about Batman and the Joker putting their sons to bed at night, right? What do you
Yeah.
think the bedtime story is gonna sound like in those
Well,
two different houses?
the villain will be.
You understand?
I
One
do.
person telling the story is the hero and the other person is the villain, you
Exactly.
know?
Yes.
And so we have to be able to tell our stories ourselves. And even if that means holding ourselves accountable as
Hmm.
we tell our stories, there's a reckoning and an honesty that has to come from this process, especially if our purpose is, I want to help the next person.
Exactly. There's no shame in it.
Yes,
There's no shame at all in it.
exactly.
You tell it loud, you tell it proud, you tell it the way it is,
Yes.
and no regrets. Say it.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. Now, how does that make you feel? Just saying that, right? Just saying, I am going to tell my story loud and proud. I'm going to tell it like it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I am going to speak it out loud. That fills me. How does that make you feel?
Listen, let me tell you something. I told you the first part of my story about my mom being a single mother and my dad walking out. And so I haven't told you the conclusion of that story. And so when I graduated from school, I'm the last child, by the way. Okay.
Oh, you're the baby?
Yes, I am. I am the baby of the house. Okay. So I have people, even the ones my mom adopted are
They were
older.
older. Mhm.
Yes. So I graduated and I got a job with one of the biggest banks in Africa then, and I began to work. And then when the time came for me to get married, back home we have this a thing about paying the bride price,
The
right?
dowry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the dowry. And
Yeah.
so when the time for the dowry came to be paid, my mom said that we had to look for my father to pay that dowry. I was upset. I was livid. I was angry. And she told me, she said, look, that I had to respect tradition and that I had to, you know, make my husband's family know, realize that I have a father somewhere. It's just that he doesn't just want to show. And so we got on the search and we looked for my father. And you know what? When he saw me, when he saw me, they could not speak. The family could not speak. They did collect the dowry, which got me very offended. But my mom passed a very strong message to him. That was her moment of victory. Why? Because that child, the kids you rejected, look at them. And we were all there standing tall and proud. My sister, she owns an elementary school, a private elementary school. My brother, which the person that I call him my brother, he's an IT engineer. And we're all standing tall and proud. And you can see he could not even bring his head up to look. That was my mother's moment of victory.
Mhm.
So you can imagine how I am right now. Unfortunately, years later, he passed, right? But the fact is, when I hear victory, what comes to my mind is me being able to surpass all the obstacles that were put in front of me able to shut up the mouth of naysayers who said I couldn't do it, I can't achieve this, I can't, me raising my head above as a woman and a woman of color. My dear, there is no better feeling than that. It may take time, but I'm telling you, there is no better joy than that. That is the true taste of victory. When
Yeah.
you surmount the problems, the obstacles life throws at you, that is victory.
That was your mom saying shush everybody, shush,
Shush.
shush everybody,
Yes.
right?
Those who have said all sorts against you,
Yeah.
that because you have vision and you know where you're going, they do not see your vision, they
Yeah.
don't know where you're going. But by the time you get there, they are like, wow. So she did that? Wow. So those who said bad things against you will come to congratulate you. That is victory. So
Yeah.
just shush them.
Just shut them for now. As Pat is saying, shut the mouths of the
Yeah,
naysayers,
you would see it in my
Yeah.
victory.
Yeah.
That's what you
Yeah.
will see. And that should be the motivation for us.
Yeah.
When people say these things, when life throws obstacles at us, we will be determined to surpass them. Okay, it may not be in the way we want it, but every little victory counts, and
Oh,
that's it.
there are three things in there you said that I really want to pull out. Number one, it may take time.
Yes.
Number two, every little victory counts. The
Yes.
little ones count,
Yeah.
right? Sorry, I said three. Those
It's
three.
okay. It's okay.
You know what? Right? It may take time, but each little victory counts. Let's not discount the little victories that are happening along the way, right? The
Yes.
little victories are the ones that build us up and give us the encouragement to keep going so that we can experience the big victories. You talked about standing there. Your mom sent a clear message
Yes.
without a word.
At all those years, she said we struggled. I was really raised in a very, very poor family, but she said I did not go to school. I'm just a local woman, but all my children, I don't mind. I would sell little things. I would go to the market. She sold food, she sold clothes, all sorts. And we're here today because my mom had a vision. And at last, they heard her victory cry. They heard her victory cry, and it will continue for years, because when they look back at my family, okay, let me tell you, one of the reasons why was because my mom just had two girls, right? So she had girls, she didn't have boys. And when you have a boy in the African society, it's, you're not yet a woman if you do not have a boy, right? So, but look at us now, we're standing like men, and my mom is a man, you know, in every sense of the word. So that day was her moment of victory. She waited so long for that, and it came through for her. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy she was able to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mama, we are like shouting out for Mama
Yay!
wherever she is. We hope she's hearing this and
Yeah.
hearing how proud you are of her
Yes.
and of her overcoming and the example that she's clearly set for you and
Yes.
your siblings,
Yes.
and the cohesion and the love that you can experience all of these years later. And
Yes.
then look at how mom has changed in a generation,
Yes.
because now you've attracted a man that
Yes.
you say is enlightened
Yes.
and doesn't now bring some of the maybe old ways of
No.
thinking
No.
into home. And
Yes.
now your reality is so different from mom's.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
that is powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
She um sometimes when I look at her, my mom never remarried though.
Mhm.
I look at her and I say, what a beautiful, beautiful personality, my mom, you know. Of course, no one is perfect, but um I know those days they would just take a girl and just marry her off to a man. They do not have courtship or whatever. They don't get to know each other like we do now. So they just say, okay, you want to get married. They take this girl from this family. And that's very sad because and then society still judges you, but it wasn't your choice. It was actually the choice of your parents, your father, who married you off to this total stranger, right? So it has taught me something too, because we should not judge other people because of what we see, whether it was their choice, whether or not it wasn't. You don't have all the facts, you don't know the full story, you see. And whatever it was, she did not say, okay, uh I didn't go to school, so just fend for yourselves, whatever. But she broke her back, and now I'm happy that I'm able to pay her, and I hope I'm even as strong as she was, because I have two girls of my own. And sometimes I'm like, you know what, my mom did this even without an education, so
Yeah.
I should be able to try, at least to the best of my ability, for my girls, for my little girls.
But you know what? I
Mm.
think mom's hope is that you don't have to be as strong as she had to be.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it's true. I don't think I'm as strong anyway. I don't think I would have survived in that situation. Sometimes I wonder, how did you do it? Oh my God, I can't.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? We stand here in Women's Her Story Month. We stand for the mothers who got it right.
Yes.
Not every single moment was right, but
Yeah.
overall, the grand summation, you got it right. We
Yeah.
stand for the mothers who got it wrong,
Yes.
right? We stand
Yes.
for the mothers who are dealing with their own trauma,
Yes.
who are dealing with their own loss and their
Yes.
own grief, and who need their own path to healing,
Yes.
right? We stand with the children, we stand with the extended families, because as women, we are such powerful beings. And our ability to set the tone across our families, right? Every mom knows the look that you can give a child. Shoot that glance across the room. They got the message loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear, right? You know,
Sometimes even the moms give the dads that look.
he got it too, right?
And then
You know, you think about times. I've been reading this book, In the Castle of My Skin by George Lamming, and he talks about, when father comes home and father walks into the room and everything gets hushed and quiet, but then everybody looks to mom to see if she's smiling or not, to find out how they should feel,
feel.
right?
For
So
real?
mom is still the one who's setting the tone
Yes.
regardless, you know? And so we are here to stand with all of these powerful women who've gone before us. We're here to stand with the women who mother children, whether or not they came from you physically, but you mother them in love
Mhm.
and in kindness and in grace, and make these provisions available for them. And here with the Olive Branch of Hope, we stand in particular with these women who are survivors of breast cancer. We stand with women who think they might have it, aren't sure. Maybe you felt something, maybe something feels a little strange and off. Maybe you're too scared to book that doctor's
Yeah.
appointment and get it tested.
Yeah.
Maybe you've been talking to your doctors and you're in diagnosis right now. For some of us, my diagnosis period was about 6 weeks, right? Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's long.
Yeah.
We're standing with the women who are in active treatment right now, undergoing chemo and radiation and all other types of treatments, clinical trials and whatnot that are out there. We stand with the women in post-active treatment for hormone treatments and all the other things that you have to do to take care of yourself afterwards. We stand with the survivors who've put it all behind you, but now have to deal with your body is so different. We stand with you. We celebrate you. We celebrate you. We celebrate you.
Yes, we do.
And we invite you to go right now to HeySisterHerstory.ca. See it? Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
It's okay. I have my water here with me just in case.
Yes. Go now. Visit. Show your support. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I always thought that breast cancer was a white woman's disease. I didn't know that black women got breast cancer, and that was mainly because all the promotions featured white women. So I just thought, oh, black women don't get this. And then, lo and behold, I was diagnosed with stage 3 advanced breast cancer. I thought after that, I finished with the IV and the chemo, that I was going to go home. I didn't know I had to take additional over-the-counter, not over-the-counter, but prescription drugs. And I went, and it was quite expensive. And I thought to myself, okay, what do poor people do? How do women that look like me, that is less fortunate than I am, how do they make it? How do they find the money to pay for this prescription, take care of their families, cover all their finances? That must be so difficult for them. And then I was at home one morning feeling, terrible after chemotherapy treatment. Couldn't get off the bed. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, okay, I don't want any other woman that looks like me to have to go through this alone. So when I get better, I'm going to do something about this. That started the journey of me and the Olive Branch of Hope.